Hello everyone, Tactical Glitch here. Today we have another replay from the League of Extraordinary Degenerates. This is a very nice tournament with a lot of great players playing, so that's why I've been casting quite a few battles from there. In this battle I was playing as the Warriors of Chaos versus Strat Games Grand Cathay. Now, Grand Cathay of course as an S tier faction, they are very strong with their defensive formations, and I need something to really crack open their defenses. Now, using normal infantry or monster rush probably won't work, and my opponent is probably prepared for it. Instead, we are going with an unconventional approach. Aspiring champions, 3 of them in fact, and they are not exactly great damage dealer, but they do have very tanky stats. Impressive melee stats, their high armor, high leadership, and silver shields allows them to fight through enemy chaff for forever and taking minimal damage from enemy missiles. At the same time, he is supported by a ton of marauders there, having a bit of chaff, actually 8 units in total, just spreading really wide and try to overwhelm the Cathay defenses with sheer numbers. However, this front line is not exactly damage dealing because we don't exactly have anything to really hurt those Jade Warriors, so we will be deploying a Chaos Sorcerer of Stanish with Shadows, coming with the Rod of Torment, Malkov's Mystifying Miasma, and Penumbral Pendulum, going for those damaging abilities and spells. For mobility, we have 4 units of Marauder Horsemen, and that's about it for the main army. Leading the army, we have Prince Sigvald the Magnificent. Yes, I am taking the healing prince himself. He is, of course, quite strong in the blob fights, and I think it's only fair since I'm fighting one of the most powerful factions in the meta. Now, on the other side of the battlefield, we have Strat Games Cathay, a frontline of Jade Warriors backed up by some Peasant Archers, very standard. The rear of the formation are guarded by the Peasant Long Spears, protecting a single Grand Cannon in the middle. In the skies, a couple flying units, Empress Crowman and the regular Onyx Crowman. Leading the army would be a Dragonblood Shugengan Lord supported by a couple Terracotta Sentinels. This is the end of the army builds, and now let's get the battle started. This battle was played and recorded before patch 4.2 dropped, so the Terracotta Sentinels here are very much still unbreakable. They do not crumble from low leadership, and I'll have to kill off the very last bit of their HP in order to win the game. Same goes for the Empress Crowman and Onyx Crowman here. They're not elementals, so they are still very effective melee fighters without any crumbling damage. Now back to the battle itself, the Grand Cannon is firing at my formations here, opening up at the Aspiring Champions as more of an auto-targeting thing, now switching targets over to my mobility units, shooting at the Marauder Horsemen, doing some pretty nice damage. Though I do think that shooting as the Aspiring Champion might be a better call, since they do not have any ways to protect themselves against the armor-piercing missile. Especially the massive cannonballs cannot be blocked by their silver shields, unlike small arms fire. Plus, any damage dealt to the Aspiring Champions, who are quite an expensive unit at 1100 gold, will still be quite worth it, especially if they can take out the unit models on the infantry. Like right now, the Chaos Sorcerer of Shadow is just dodging all the shots from the Grand Cannon, and the ammo is largely wasted on this very nimble character. In the skies, the Dragonblood Shugengan Lord and the Empress Crowman are unopposed, as all my mobility, my missiles are on the far flanks of the battlefield, unable to provide any countermeasures against my opponent's flying units. They will just go after some of my marauders here, Shugengan Lord charging in, and then the Empress Crowman will be charging their flanks, doing some really nice impact damage. In the front line though, Prince Sigvald YOLOing himself onto some Jade Warriors, pinning them down in melee, and then follow up with a bit of a Penumbral Pendulum. It should be able to do some really good damage to all these armored Jade Warriors, actually hitting both units, and they're down to roughly half health. The Marauders and Aspiring Champions will be charging in, starting that melee grind, while the rest of my Chaos Infantry are actually rather slow in advance. I was not able to keep track of all of them right now, as I do have a lot of units to control. Having an almost fully stacked up army, Marauder Horsemen are moving into the rear of the Cathay box, trying to get through the gaps of the Cathay defenses, while finally the Jade Warriors are engaging Aspiring Champions and Marauders. Still, with the Marauder Horsemen intruding the heart of the Cathay box, all these Cathay mobility, the Crowmen, Empress Crowmen, even after dropping that grenade on some of the poor Marauders, will be piling onto this one unit of poor Marauder Horsemen, and they shall be quickly routed. Even the Terracotta Sentinel is here, and the Marauder Horsemen are quickly shattered. I'll be avenging these fallen minions with a bit of a wand bombardment from the Chaos Sorcerer of Slaanesh, while the Marauders here are trying to get through the gaps of the Cathay unit once more. They managed to position themselves behind the Jade Warriors, doing some rear attacks and also having the possibility to chase after some peasant archers. Crowmen are nearby, but it seems that they have other orders instead of intercepting these Marauders with great weapons, allowing them to go after and shut down the peasant archers. On the other side, Marauders with great weapons are kind of stuck on the Jade Warriors being recharged by the Empress Crowmen. This is not going to end well for the poor Marauders. In the front line, another pendulum going down onto the Jade Warriors because of how few unit models are on the Aspiring Champion unit. I really don't care about any wind spell damaging them due to their low model count, and with all these wind spell damaging the Jade Warriors, the Aspiring Champions are slowly but surely winning this grinding fight. They themselves haven't taken much damage from the engagement, having heavy armor and elite melee stats. They are comfortably breaking through the Cathay front line, now trying to push for the backline missile unit. The Grand Cannon are heavily compromised, while the Crowmen are not in any position to counteract my melee advances. One of the Ancestral Warrior summons has been dropped to just pin down my frontline units, but there's simply too many Chaos units, and one lone Ancestral Warriors can't stop everything all at once. The Grand Cannon crew is officially knocked out, while the Jade Warrior crossbows, despite they're still firing, their fire position will not be secured for much longer. That one Jade Warrior unit that is still holding their flank is now slowly finished off by the Aspiring Champions, and their other side is also collapsing under the sheer numbers of Chaos units. Cathay used a Talons of the Night to stem the tide of Marauders, doing some pretty nice damage, but then again not doing much against my characters. Horsemen at the back kind of got forgotten as my micro is taxed elsewhere on the battlefield. Another one bombardment dropping onto the Terracotta Sentinel. That was definitely a misplay here. I should have read the item description, because that bombardment is way better shooting at units than against a single entity. A Malkov's Mystifying Miasma from the Shadow Slaanesh Sorcerer, draining the health of the Crowman and healing the Sorcerer himself. You might ask, wait, why does he heal up? Well, that's because he does have an item or ability, the Soul Feeder, allowing him to get some healing every time he casts a spell. Very useful for the Slaanesh Sorcerer, keeping the caster healthy as he has taken some damage by engaging in melee combat. This is before patch 4.2, so the Crowmen are still very strong in melee combat. I don't want to fight them in melee, so I'll be heavily targeting them with Malkov's Mystifying Miasma from the caster. Aspiring Champions now at the back line with nothing to really stop them. They're just grinding through all these Cathay infantry. The Cathay infantry simply can't punch through the Aspiring Champions' protection, while the Aspiring Champions, having splash damage, can easily strike down this kind of chaff. While the Chaos Sorcerer of Shadows are quickly just running away from all this pursuit of Terracotta Sentinel and the Shugengan Lord, my Marauder Horsemen are aiming down the Terracotta Sentinel. These missile units are pretty much my only tools outside of Prince Sigvald himself that can threaten all the Cathay Sentinels. The Sentinels might have heavy armor, but my Javelins can still do some damage, as the Javelins do have pretty decent armor piercing value at 7 per shot. Marauder infantry will be piling in as well, using their bodies to block for the Chaos Sorcerer of Slaanesh. Actually, the Slaanesh Sorcerer is going very gutsy here, using that devastating flanker trait to do a little bit of chip damage against the Terracotta Sentinel. In disguise, the Onyx Crowman is once again targeted by the Malkov's Mystifying Miasma, taking some damage, while the spell is also healing Slaanesh Sorcerer with the Soul Feeder effect. The Shadow Slaanesh Sorcerer is also backing off from combat, dropping a wand on to another Terracotta Sentinel, once again not doing much damage. On the far side, the Cathay melee units got separated from their missile units and lost their harmony buffs, allowing the Aspiring Champions to cut them down. Even if some missiles are coming back to give them harmony, it is way too little too late as they are already wavering in leadership. Anyways, over here, the second Ancestral Warrior summon has been dropped, but I simply avoid combat, other than the Marauders, who are quite slow and unable to run away from the Ancestral Ethereal summon. Anyways, the Marauder Horsemen are backing off, doing a bit of kiting here, leaving Sigvold in the middle of multiple single entities gunning him. But Sigvold is pretty much the tank of all tanks with all his abilities. He is quite comfortable in this kind of melee grind, although he is indeed getting quite low in terms of health and heal cap. So these aspiring champions originally chasing after the fleeing peasant archers will be re-engaging in combat right here, trying to screen out some attacks for their liege lord. As you can see here, they are just piling onto the Terracotta Sentinels, distracting their melee hits away, while Sigvold and the Chaos Sorcerer jumping into melee combat once more. The Shadow Slaanesh Sorcerer took a hit from the Sentinels, but that is fine. He does have Soul Feeder, so he just needs to keep spamming the Malkov's Mystifying Miasma and get his HP back. Also, he's on horseback, so he can just quickly runs off and cycle charge back in to activate the Devastating Flanker. Aspiring champions on the far side, this one rather tattered but still more than enough to work down all these missile units, will continue their chase against all these Jade Warrior crossbows. Peasant archers also trying to move back into a safer position, while the Jade Warriors in the front line are slowly worked down by all these aspiring champions. The double Terracotta Sentinels are ganging up on Sigvold, but being rather slippery as a champion of Slaanesh, he is tanking just fine with the healing slowly pushing him to heal cap. The Terracotta Sentinels, though, they are not feeling too hot right now, as Sigvold is still a very solid melee combatant, punching back with over 700 weapon strength thanks to the damage buffs from his item and ability. Especially with Sliver Slash not only giving him a damage boost but also armor sundering to reduce his target's armor, helping the non-armor piercing Sigvold to do even more damage. And because the crossbows are shut down by my aspiring champions, my javelins are able to continuously fire at the sentinels. The Shogun Lord is trying to pressure the Marauder Horsemen, but alas, this is not exactly enough, as the Marauder Horseman simply runs away, while the aspiring champions will pile in and screen off this Shogun Lord. The Terracotta Sentinel once again try to target the Marauder Horsemen. Let us go into a bit of fast forward here, as it is a bit of a grind phase. One of the Terracotta Sentinel finally finished off by a melee charge from the Horseman who ran out of ammo, the other one also running low in health. Now a little bit of Malkov's once again draining the health of the Peasant Long Spear's health away, but more importantly providing that healing for my Chaos Sorcerer of Slaanesh using Shadow Magic. Honestly, this is a bit convoluted, but thankfully we're almost at the end. The Shogun Lord used a desperate Talons of the Night trying to work down my units, but the aspiring champions simply don't care due to their low unit model count. They got knocked over a bit and took some minor damage, but overall they're just sitting comfortably in the middle of the spell, while my characters are finishing off the last bit of HP on this Terracotta Sentinel. A final charge from the Shadow Slaanesh Sorcerer finishes off the Terracotta Sentinel, leaving the Shogun Lord alone against Sigvold and the boys. Army losses hit, and once again aspiring champions crushes a box build. GG to my opponent's strat games for this close battle. If not for the two healing characters, I most certainly would have lost this game. However, this time the Chaos Sorcerer of Slaanesh, Lord of Shadows, was able to dish out quite a bit of pain, using Malkov's to drain away the health of the Crowman, two very essential components to the victory of Cathay, and on top of that, the Pendulums breaking through the Jade Warrior front line, eliminating them early so that the aspiring champions can punch into the Cathay box and start pushing back all these Cathay missiles. The Marauder infantry and cavalry actually didn't do too much here, as they are a rather cowardly bunch. As soon as something like a Terracotta Sentinel stands in front of them, they will be quickly terrified. Onyx Crowman also doing some really effective rear charging from our opponent there, so these guys just got wrecked by the Grand Cathay units. However, the aspiring champions did a solid job being an anchor of my infantry line there, pushing through the Jade Warrior front line and getting on top of the missiles, and then Prince Sigvold, an absolute anchor point for my army there, grinding through the health of both of the Terracotta Sentinels using his Sliver Slash and the Mortal Blow, getting a lot of damage from just fighting the double Terracotta Sentinels and the Dragon Blood Shogun Lord. Though I do have to say, my opponent deciding not to go for the cheesiest build, no Miao Ying and no regrowth, is a big reason why I was able to outgrind Cathay. For the Grand Cathay army here, the Shogun Lord did some pretty good damage with Talons of the Night. Doubles Terracotta Sentinels did some pretty good damage as well, the rest of the army not so much. Although the Jade Warrior crossbows Worked through quite a bit of HP on my skirmishing cavalry, but the Jade Warriors simply got outclassed by the aspiring champions even if they have the buffs from their harmony, boosting their melee stats. Anyways, that's it for this battle here. Honestly, I do enjoy using aspiring champions quite a bit as a surprise against my opponents. They might be a niche unit, but they still have some pretty good uses in battle. For example, breaking boxes like that of Cathay and Skaven. Just like here, my opponent was not prepared to deal with them and actually underestimated their impact on the battle itself, and I was able to just outgrind the Grand Cathay army in the end with their superior melee stats. Anyways, that's it for today's battle. I hope you all enjoyed this multiplayer action, and if you want to see more Total War Warhammer content, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.